Welcome to this week's edition of Game Day Wrap-Up. Week 10, Season 17 is in the books. Along with Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. And Mike, the shocker of the weekend, we had 3 teams clinch divisions. None of them were Baltimore, who's undefeated in 10-0. They still have not clinched the North. That may be decided next week, or it could be decided in Week 12. We'll see what happens, but congratulations to Arizona of the West, Mexico City of the South, and Florida of the Atlantic. We'll start with Mexico City. Mike, they beat the team that won the division last season, Fort Worth, 28-10. Aztecs get the win, and they are in the playoffs. Thoughts on the Aztecs' victory and season so far?
Yeah, just really and truly what we saw this weekend was more of the same as to what we've seen from Mexico City the last 4 or 5 weeks. A lot of Phoenix Jones, a couple of touchdown runs, over 100 yards. Matt Wilson, very effective and efficient again this weekend. 2 touchdown passes, 273 yards. I don't think any turnovers in this game. Just a solid team. Defense played well. Dan Tritz, he's been a beast the past couple of weeks. He got off to a slow start this season. He also had a couple of sacks in this game. Just a solid team all the way around, as most of these teams that are right now in the top echelon of the league are. You have to be solid. You have to be balanced. You have to be efficient at this point of the season. And Mexico City, they did nothing to change that this weekend. And congratulations to them, not only clinching the division title, but also the 100th win in franchise history.
Think about this, Mike. They are 8-2, but I kind of view them as a 9-1 team because they lost games back-to-back weeks. They lost the game at Florida, which, if you remember, that first drive of that game, they held the ball for like half the quarter, and then they were kind of stunned out of their shoes when A.J. Francis got that 101-yard, 102-yard pick six, and the game was kind of off kilter after that. They seemed to kind of go away from their run game. Then the next week, St. Louis, again, they kind of went away from their run game. St. Louis beat them at their own game. Mexico City was up 24-14 in the fourth quarter and blew that lead and lost the game. But that was all in a 2-week kind of vacuum. Other than that, they have been totally unstoppable.
Yeah, well, I view them as 8-2. They are who their record says that they are. I mean, they had those two hiccups along the way, but of course, as you mentioned, one of those losses were to another one of our division clinchers this weekend, Florida, and another team that kept their playoff hopes alive this weekend, St. Louis. So, they're 8-2. They are who their record says they are. But hey, a solid team. Defense plays well, as I mentioned. They haven't been turning the ball over here recently, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in about 2 to 3 weeks.
All right, how about Florida? 8-2. We mentioned that loss for Mexico City was against Florida. That's why Florida's in the number 2 spot right now with the tiebreaker.
Yeah, this was a solid win this weekend for Florida over extremely explosive offensive team in London. They figured out a way to shut the receiving core down over there. Alex Dominguez also had a huge game for Florida this weekend. We haven't heard much from Big Sexy this season, but he had 4 sacks in this game Saturday, and Florida looked tough. I mean, Bullet Boletsky has had a breakout season in his second season. He's fastly becoming one of the better players and better running backs in this league, both receiving out of the backfield as well as on the ground. Verdon Zarkov had a huge game. It seemed like whenever Florida needed a big catch to keep the chains moving, he was right there, Johnny on the spot, to help them move the chains. He had 120 yards receiving and including a touchdown. E.J. Minson, I can't not mention him. He had a couple of huge catches and touchdown in this game. Florida's a solid team as well. No name defense. You don't hear a lot about these guys, by name on defense, but they're solid. They're not going to give up a lot. And in terms of the defense is solid, offense efficient, you're going to win games.
Florida's 2 losses are to surprisingly Fort Worth. They lost that game 20-14. That was a really ugly offensive showing. Fort Worth mucked that game up, and then back in week 1 to Arizona in a game that, hey, if one of your 2 losses was in week 1, you're probably feeling pretty good because that's a crapshoot anyway. But Arizona got them that day, and they got the West today as well. They get the win. They're now 7-3. Nobody in the division is even close. The West has kind of been a hot mess this year, but Arizona has taken care of business. They are back in the playoffs.
And Cam, and I don't want anyone in Arizona to take this the wrong way, but Arizona, they have played really boring football over the last 4 to 5 games, and that's extreme compliment because none of the games, in my opinion, have really been in doubt. The defense have totally dominated. DJ Moses has come on here in the past couple of weeks. Tonight he had another 104 yards, 3 touchdowns, coming off of a big game last week as well. And they've just dominated people so much and uglied the game up, and for the most part, been in control of most of these games from start to finish. It's been kind of boring, and that's the way you kind of want to play. Like, hey, we have this game in control from the very beginning. You don't have a chance, so hey, we don't need to, you to be sitting on pins and needles wondering if we're going to pull it out. We've already done all the dirty work in quarters 1 through 3.
Yeah, 4 weeks in a row since the loss to San Diego, they have been, outstanding. And in the early part of the season, they beat Florida by 14, but it was, it was a back and forth game. They beat Fort Worth by 8. They were getting these wins, and then they lost the game-winning field goal to Queen City, the game-winning field goal to Denver. They lost to San Diego by 8. All these games were really close. They went on a 3-game losing streak, and I think that loss to San Diego really fired this team up. I think they probably looked at it and they said, look, right now we're mediocre. We don't want to be mediocre. And they have crushed. It's actually 5 weeks in a row. They have crushed opponents. LA came back late for a month ago, but Arizona dominated that game for 3.5 quarters. And now they got at Mexico City. So you got 2 division winners who are going to be fighting over playoff positioning next week on Next Level Sports. That's going to be a monumental game. And Vegas potentially in week 12 fighting for their playoff lives, since Vegas has Lone Star next week. We'll see what happens with the Fury.
Yeah, I did not realize that Arizona, we're going up against Mexico City next weekend. That's going to be a great matchup for as playoff seeding is concerned, and a great matchup for as great minds of offensive and defensive strategy in this league with Ramos and Eddie. So, yeah, that's going to be a great game to watch for next week.
Another must-see game up this part of a brilliant Week 11 schedule. It's probably the best-looking schedule we've had all year in terms of matchups. Yeah. Cannot wait. It's going to be fantastic. Sunday afternoon, Lone Star and Houston grabbed the headlines. Best game of the week as Lone Star pulls it out over Houston 34-28. This was back and forth. We saw some fullback heroics. We saw Ike McBride tearing it up. Dave Axis making incredible plays. Houston's offense was efficient as all get out in the first half. And then they just kind of hit a brick wall, Mike, as Houston loses a heartbreaker to fall to 4-6.
Yeah, this was all about the newcomer just a couple of weeks into the league, Justin Williams. Early in this game, had a touchdown run in the first quarter, had a touchdown run in the second quarter, had a touchdown catch late in the first half to close out a 21-point first half of Houston, and as well as, and then you include Dave Burr in there. He was kind of making big plays all over the place and getting everyone involved. And then all of a sudden in the second half, the Houston offense kind of disappeared. Only 7 points in the second half, and it was totally dominated by Lone Star after that. But Ike McBride early in this game really established herself. She had a long touchdown run in the first quarter, but the second half, They really took control of this game. As you mentioned, Dave Axis with a bunch of huge catches in this game, and Ike McBride really established herself as a force, not only with, for a long touchdown run, which it was in the first half, but then she started pounding the rock for 6, 7, 8 yards of carry and keeping Lone Star's drives alive in this game. And then eventually they just took control. But I will go back and mention as well, let's give a little credit to this defense. Evan Lacey had a huge interception in this game to kind of, stop some momentum for Houston. Juke and Rukin did have a big sack in this game in the first half, and it kind of got Houston off balance a little bit, and it seemed like the defense kind of settled in, kept Houston off balance, made adjustments to, Justin Williams, who seemed like Houston wanted to kind of try to focus on in this game. And then eventually the offense took over and put up big numbers in the second half to pull away from Houston.
When I look back on or reflect on Lone Star's season so far this year, Mike, it just kind of blows me away. They win convention weekend on a Harish Prasad fumble in overtime that opened up the overtime period. They win by 7 against Sioux Falls after Willie Beeman, the backup quarterback, comes in after Tyree gets hurt and almost leads a charge for Sioux Falls to get that win. Then they beat Fort Worth on a field goal that hit the upright as time expired from Taco Sicario that avoided overtime. Then they beat LA 38-31 in a nail-biter that for both teams was pretty uncharacteristic. There was 28 points combined scored in that fourth quarter, and it was just back and forth and back and forth. And then today they win by 6 points, 34-28. They have won all 5 of their games by 6 points or less. And if they make the playoffs, they got at Vegas and they host Fort Worth next, which of course they've had Fort Worth's number for years. I mean, it's just kind of incredible that that they have just continued to pull out victories. And I'm not saying that they're worse than 5-5. Like I'm giving them huge props for that. Like this team shows incredible heart and ability when they need it the most.
And one thing about Lone Star, Cam, what I was actually thinking this during the course of that game earlier today was that to me, they finally look like the Lone Star that I've been accustomed to seeing over the first couple seasons in existence. Like I said, Ike McBride over 6 yards carry. I think that she probably ended up with a higher average than that. We saw Dave Axis with the passing game getting involved. Ace Fennick was extremely efficient. 240 yards and a couple of touchdowns. The defense playing, rock solid. Bo Martin Jr. also had an interception in this game. That's the Lone Star that I've come accustomed to seeing, pounding the rock, controlling the ball, controlling the clock, making the big plays when they need to. And, no disrespect to anyone that they have left on the schedule, but I believe they have the easiest route to get above 500 and really secure themselves inside this playoffs.
Now, Houston, not dead yet.
Yeah.
They have 2 home games remaining. They're 4-6. They host Sioux Falls next week. Take care of that. Then they got Mexico City. That can launch their strength of victory up, get them in the tiebreaker conversation. And they played Mexico City on the road earlier this season and only lost by 3. So we know that this team can compete with the Aztecs historically and this season. And so maybe Houston is not dead yet. But a heartbreaker, devastating loss for them today as Lone Star moves into the driver's seat. How about St. Louis today? They come into Vancouver, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this inconsistently special Vancouver offense, because they are just like Jekyll and Hyde. Some days they are brilliant. Some days they cannot put it together, and they did not have it together today as St. Louis wins 30-16. The Gladiators, big-time winners in this one, to put destiny in their hands, 5-5 with 2 division games left against the 2 teams that are battling for the division just like them. It's going to be wild, but St. Louis just totally dominant today.
Yeah, and starting with Vancouver, this is the first season in a long time, Cam, I can not remember seeing whether it's Brett Killian or are Hall streaking down the seams of defenses, making big play after big play after big play, even though Tom Pepper has he's over 3,400 yards, I believe, for the season already. He's close to 30 touchdowns. But as you mentioned, inconsistent. The Arizona game a couple of weeks ago, that offense struggled. Robert Redford under 30 yards in the game today, as well as against Arizona. It's just kind of hard to put your finger on as to what's causing this inconsistency. But they have struggled a little bit from game to game. But man, look, take nothing away from St. Louis. That defense played great today. Basically, the tone was set by Freeman Peltier early in this game. He had a couple of interceptions. Nicholas Warner had a big interception in the first half to stop another drive that Vancouver were on. Late in the game, Raw Galar had an interception to close it out. So, yeah, that defensive secondary played great. You're not going to mention a whole bunch of guys on that defensive line, but obviously they played solid to shut down Robert Redford. And that entire St. Louis defense set the tone, and that offense don't take anything away from them. Christian Brown, he slings it all over the yard. Eagle Mondavi, he has weapons. Eagle Mondavi, Paul Delavu, and Phil Koss had a couple of touchdowns as well today. And St. Louis, they are one of the better teams from top to bottom in this league. But as I mentioned, Lone Star at 5-5 probably have one of the easier roads to possibly 7-5 and solidifying playoffs. I think St. Louis at 5-5, they probably have one of the more difficult roads, and having to go and play Louisiana at home and having to go on the road to final week at Arizona. So, but
Atlanta.
I'm sorry, at Atlanta. The A's get me mixed up, Cam, but I'm sorry. But at Atlanta, and a difficult road, but a talented team, and they're more than capable of winning both of those games.
They need some help from Portland in Week 11. If Portland can pull the upset over Atlanta, because I think Atlanta should be favored in that game, especially after they kicked the crap out of Tulsa 48-3 this week. But if Portland can pull the upset and St. Louis can beat Louisiana, St. Louis can win the division in Week 12 against the Atlanta Swarm, and that's a big deal. Now, how about St. Louis's resume here? Very interesting. They're 5-5. They have a 14-point loss to L.A. They're 7-3. They have an 11-point loss to Baltimore. They're undefeated. They have a 3-point loss to Jacksonville, an 8-point loss to Florida, and a 7-point loss to San Diego. I mean, this team has been in every single game all year long, and I don't think that's going to change the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, every team, Cam, seems to have a couple of games on their resume that they wish they could have back. And Jacksonville and San Diego are probably going to be those games for St. Louis. And not to say that they, should have beaten those teams, but just kind of the way that they lost those games, and particularly in San Diego, a late block punt and a tie game cost them that game late, that probably could have went to overtime, or they could have pulled out late in the fourth quarter. So that's going to be one that maybe they would want back, and obviously the road would be a little easier than it is right now. But yeah, talented team have competed in pretty much every game week to week, and nothing's going to change in the next 2 weeks.
The special teams giveth and taketh away, as St. Louis has a punt blocked by San Diego 2 weeks ago, and then this week San Diego has 2 snaps soar over their punter's head, which really stifled all the momentum in that game and helped Portland clean up and send San Diego to 2-8. All right, Mike, game balls, you are up first. Who you got?
Cam, I almost did the gentlemanly thing and let you go first, but
oh, dang it, man!
But we both know I'm not.
Right.
We're both not. I'm not a gentleman,
You're
so
right.
I'm gonna go ahead and go first. But I'm not gonna pick who you thought I was gonna pick. I'm gonna go with someone pretty much unsung. His team's not going to the playoffs, but his team did win the championship last season. I'm going with Jeremy Mosley.
Oh.
He had a great game today in Vice Wars. Only 57 yards, but he was huge in this game. 3 touchdowns. He really set the tone for what Denver did today. And I will mention an honorable mention from that game as well. Bailey O'Shaughnessy had a big game, 141 yards and I think a couple touchdowns as well. Denver looked like the old Denver for once this season, 41 points in that game. But yeah, it was all about Jeremy Mosley. He really had a great game and set the tone for what Denver wanted to do. He gets my first game ball.
It was fun to see Denver out there playing like that. And Denver had scored 24 points combined in the last 2 weeks. So for them to go to Vegas, put up 41 against their rivals, I know it had to have felt pretty good, especially after they lost the first meeting with Vegas earlier this season, 20-16, and that was a season high for points for Denver. In fact, Denver had not even scored over 30 since opening night, week 1, when they took down Jacksonville 31-23. So season high, great day for Denver, and a nice pick. You pulled a switcheroo on me. I really thought you were going to take it from me. So I'll take it before I can give you a second thought. I'm going Justin Williams, fullback for the Houston Hyenas. He had 3 touchdowns in the first half of just only his second game this season. It was so awesome watching Justin Williams play like that and put Houston on his back. Let me give you his stat line from the week prior. You ready to see what he did in his first game in an SFL uniform? 5 carries, 5 yards, 2 receptions, 6 yards, no touchdowns. And today to get 3 of them in his only his second game in the league, it helped keep Houston in that game. It helped finish drives for Houston, and it's always fun seeing a new person, gonna get called up into their moment in the SFL and truly shine.
Yeah, Cam, he definitely set the tone for the Hyenas today to start that game off. 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, one in the air. I know he would rather have the victory under his belt than all those touchdowns. And Houston would be in a sitting in a great spot right now. But definitely kudos out to him. 2 weeks in the league, 3 touchdowns under his belt. Congratulations to Justin.
All right, Mike, who you got?
Second game ball, Cam, is oldie but goodie. I don't know if he's gotten a game ball from us this season, but I'm pretty sure he has. I have to go with Mac Chima. He had another huge game this weekend, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Cam, in doing some deep dumpster diving on the stats line, Mac Chima, we all know he's actually the wide receiver 2 with Baltimore, but he has 1,310 yards on the season, which are 3 more yards than the number 1 wide receiver on Baltimore's team, Ivory Irving. So, and he's also equaled him in touchdowns for the season with 11. So Mac Chima is having a huge season. Right now, he has to be considered for some type of offensive player of the year category and candidate. Huge game, like I said, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a huge victory for another victory for Baltimore. So, yeah, Mac Chima gets my second game ball.
We know Serron Yates and the rest of that team calls him mac and cheese.
Yeah.
He's critical to their offense being as explosive as it is. Irvin's has been their possession guy. Just get you first downs all over the place. But Mac Chima, if you can't lock him down, you're in some big trouble. And Chima was outstanding, over 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, and he probably, just looking at the numbers from the players that played today, Kendra Hall was really quiet. DR Sim was pretty quiet, considering Mac Chima is going to lead the league in receiving yards going into week 11, and Irvin's going to be number 2. I mean, it's just crazy, and we haven't seen that actually. We did see that back in the Dallas Lobo days with Junior Senior the third and Mike Osai were 1-2, but we haven't really seen that in the league since. And Chima and Irvin have just been awesome for Baltimore. I'm gonna stay with receivers, Mike, and I'm actually gonna go Dave Axis on this one. Axis didn't fill the box score, but every time he caught a pass, he either broke a tackle, caught it with one hand, made somebody miss, moved the chains, or did something otherwise remarkable.
Yeah.
Dave Axis has had a rough season off the field. We all know
Yeah.
that. It's just been hard on him from the remnants of Ida causing power outages and flooding to not being able to make it to the convention because of a death in the family and starting up work again. So we haven't seen Axis live around. It's been tough. And I don't think they win that game without Dave Axis being special, being the diva that he is. And he just was that today for them when they needed it most. And so while it may not have been a box score stuffer today, I think he deserves a game ball after the season he's had.
Yeah, Cam, and it was good to see his name, in the chat a couple of times today as well. We hadn't seen him around in a while, as you mentioned. But yeah, as far as on the field goes, you said getting his, one hand on balls. That one thought that I had going into, you mentioning him was that, whatever he gets his hands on, he typically catches. You're never going to see any drops with Dave Axis, it seems like. And as you mentioned, he kept those chains moving, but with big catches and keeping huge drives alive for Lone Star, and they turned them into points late in the second half, and they were able to pull out the victory. And now they're sitting in the catbird seat at 5-5.
All right, last one, Mike.
Last game ball, Cam. I'm gonna go back to one of my old teammates. I was extremely happy to see him have the type of game that he had this weekend. He hasn't crossed the century mark rushing in a long time. I got to give kudos to my old teammate Jared Willis. He had a huge game this weekend, 107 yards, touchdown on the ground, 47 yards receiving, a couple of touchdowns in the air, and believe it or not, after a hard season, tough season for Jacksonville, helped keep these guys alive in the playoff conversation. They're now 4-6 after a huge victory this weekend over DC. Kudos to my old teammate Jared Willis. I was happy to see him get back on track a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking about him when we were going through game ball, and an honorable mention to Kevin Say too. He got kind of back to his old ways as well. But Jared Willis, they don't win the game if he doesn't get over 100 yards, and they have really struggled to get him involved and get him going, and I think that's well-deserved given the drought that he's been in, and played a great game, and Jacksonville's still in it. They are not done yet. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit to close out the show, Mike, and I'm going to go Bryant Dynasty because I know that you beat Tulsa 48-3, and Tulsa can't figure out how to score, and they apparently can't figure out how to stop anybody right now. And they're going through a rebuild, and they obviously, need to change things up and have plenty of talent on that team. But Bryant Dynasty, oh my goodness. I mean, 30 for 33 for 358 yards. That's over 10 yards per attempt for Bryant Dynasty. 4 touchdowns, no picks. And what's even more impressive, Mike, his longest throw was 34 yards. So it wasn't like he had an 80-yarder and a 58-yarder that helped inflate the numbers. He got everybody involved, and everyone was so efficient. Siege Falco had 2 receptions, and he scored on both of them. BDG Hollywood had 14 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown. Even Jamal Wooding, 5 for 79. Boo Chisholm, 6 for 80. And Ryan Roosevelt got in the mix with 4 for 36. He got everybody involved, and it was a total clinic. And Atlanta, they've got an interesting end to their season with Portland and St. Louis, but they're both at home. They are humming, and they quickly put that ugly loss to Louisiana from 2 weeks ago behind them.
And Cam, and that's the Bryant Dynasty we've been waiting to see since his rookie season. I mean, that's the type of numbers that he was putting up then. I'm happy for my friend Dynasty to see him have a game like that. Yeah, it was Tulsa, but that doesn't matter. 30 out of 33 for 358. That's huge. It doesn't matter who you playing. This is a tough league week in and week out, and I'm really happy to see Bryant get back on track. And Atlanta, of course, they're going to be tough. Coming down the stretch as well. That's a team you do not want to see come playoff time because Mark Chisholm definitely knows how to get things done in the playoffs and get a ring on his hand.
Week 11 starts next Saturday. We got some amazing matchups: Baltimore, Queen City, Atlanta, Portland, Louisiana, St. Louis, Arizona, Mexico City. It's all over the place. LA, Vancouver. I mean, it's as dynamic as it gets. Must-see football next week. But for now, Mike and I are going to go sleep for 5 days. That's what we do, didn't you know? We sleep for 5 days, and then we do this for 2 days straight all day long. And that's a wrap. For Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. This has been Game Day Wrap-Up. We'll see you next week.